The story of Moses begins in the Bible, in the book of Exodus. It tells of a time when the children of Israel lived in Egypt, and their numbers had grown so great that a new Pharaoh, who did not know Joseph, became afraid of them. The Israelites were forced into slavery, and their lives were made very hard. But God had a plan. From among his people, he raised up a child named Moses, who would grow to become their deliverer. From the very beginning, Moses' life was marked by God's protection, and he was chosen to lead his people out of bondage and into freedom. This is the story of Moses, a story of courage, faith, and God's mighty power. Now let us enter the story. In the beginning, the family of Israel lived in Egypt. Long before, a man named Joseph had saved Egypt from famine, and his family was welcomed there. But many years passed, and a new king rose to power, a Pharaoh who did not remember Joseph. This Pharaoh became afraid of the Israelites. They had grown very numerous, and he feared they might become stronger than Egypt. So he made them slaves. The Israelites were forced to work hard, building cities and serving the Egyptians. Their lives became bitter with hard labor. The more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied. Pharaoh then gave a cruel command. Every Hebrew baby boy that was born must be thrown into the Nile River. But in the middle of this darkness, God was already preparing a deliverer, a man from the tribe of Levi, and his wife had a son. When the mother saw that the child was special, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she made a basket out of reeds, coated it with tar to make it waterproof, and placed the baby inside. She gently set the basket among the reeds along the Nile River. The baby's sister stood at a distance, watching to see what would happen. Soon, Pharaoh's daughter came down to the river to bathe. She saw the basket and had it brought to her. When she opened it, she saw the baby crying, and she felt compassion.
This is one of the Hebrew babies.
At that moment, the baby's sister stepped forward and
Shall I
asked,
go and get a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?
Pharaoh's daughter agreed. So the child's own mother was called to care for him. Pharaoh's daughter later adopted the boy as her own son and named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace, learning the ways of Egypt, but he knew he was a Hebrew. One day, when Moses was grown, he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. Looking around and seeing no one, Moses struck the Egyptian and killed him. He hid the body in the sand. The next day, Moses saw 2 Hebrews fighting and tried to stop them. But one of them said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses realized that what he had done was known. When Pharaoh heard about it, he tried to kill Moses. So Moses fled Egypt and went to the land of Midian. There, he helped the daughters of a priest named Jethro and was invited to stay with the family. Moses married Zipporah, one of Jethro's daughters, and became a shepherd. For 40 years, Moses lived quietly in the wilderness. But God had not forgotten his people. One day, while tending his flock near Mount Horeb, Moses saw something unusual, a bush that was on fire but was not burning up. As Moses went closer to look, God called to him from the bush.
"Moses, Moses."
"Here I am," Moses replied. "Do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Then God revealed himself. "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." God said, "I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries. I am concerned about their pain. So I have come down to rescue them. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Moses was afraid. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" he asked. God answered, "I will be with you." So Moses asks,
"If I go to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' then what shall I tell them?"
God's answer, "I am who I am." Then God said, "This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. Say to the Israelites, 'The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, the name you shall call me from generation to generation." Moses asked,
"What if they don't believe me?"
Then God gave him signs. God asked Moses, "What is that in your hand?" Moses answered, "A staff." Then the Lord said, "Throw it on the ground." When Moses threw it down, it became a serpent, and Moses drew back in fear. Then the Lord told him, "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail." So Moses reached out, took hold of it, and it turned back into a staff in his hand. God said this was so that the people of Israel would believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, had appeared to him. The Lord said to Moses, "Put your hand inside your cloak." Moses put his hand inside his cloak, and when he took it out, it was leprous, white like snow. Then God said, "Put your hand back into your cloak." Moses did so, and when he took it out again, it was restored, just like the rest of his flesh. After giving the first two signs, the Lord said that if the people still did not believe, Moses should take water from the Nile and pour it on the ground. Then the water would become blood on the dry ground. Still Moses hesitated.
"Please, Lord, I am not a good speaker."
God replied, "Who gave human beings their mouths? I will help you speak." Finally, Moses agreed. God also sent his brother Aaron to help him. Moses returned to Egypt with Aaron. They went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so they may worship me." But Pharaoh refused. "Who is the Lord," Pharaoh said, "that I should obey him?" But Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Instead of freeing the Israelites, he made their work even harder, forcing them to carry heavier loads of bricks and stone, their hands raw and their backs aching. The Israelites groaned under the cruelty, crying out to God for help. God, hearing their cries, showed his power through a series of miraculous signs, the 10 plagues, to compel Pharaoh to let his people go. First, the waters of the Nile turned to blood, and the fish died, and the river became foul, so that the Egyptians could not drink its water. Then frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt, entering homes, ovens, and beds. Next, the dust of the land became gnats, covering both people and animals. After that, swarms of flies filled the houses, and the land was corrupted by them. God's power continued. The livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one of the livestock of Israel died. Then boils broke out on the skin of men and animals. Hail fell from the sky, striking down crops and shattering the fields. Locusts came and devoured what remained after the hail.
The locusts! They're everywhere! Save the crops! Save them around!
Then darkness covered the land of Egypt for 3 days, a darkness that could be felt, yet all the children of Israel had light where they lived. Finally came the most terrible plague, the death of the firstborn in every Egyptian household, from the firstborn of Pharaoh to the firstborn of the captive, and even of livestock. God spoke through Moses and Aaron, giving a command to the people of Israel. Each family was to take a lamb, perfect, without blemish. As the sun began to set, they slaughtered the lamb, just as they were told. Then carefully, they took its blood and spread it across the sides and tops of their door frames. Then, in the deep of night, the Lord passed through the land. From the greatest house of Pharaoh to the lowest servant, death came upon every Egyptian home.
My child, my firstborn, why have you left us?
The darkness has taken them all.
What sin have we committed?
But in the homes of Israel, something different happened. The blood on their doorposts stood as a sign. And when the Lord saw the blood, he passed over them. No harm entered. No death touched their homes. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where someone had not died. Pharaoh finally called Moses and said, "Go, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Worship the Lord as you have requested." The Israelites left Egypt quickly, taking what they had. God led them by a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. But soon, Pharaoh changed his mind and chased after them with his army. The Israelites were trapped, the Red Sea in front of them, Pharaoh's army behind them. They were afraid. But Moses said, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Then God told Moses to stretch out his staff over the sea. The waters parted. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on both sides. When the Egyptians followed, the waters returned and covered them. The Israelites were saved. After crossing the sea, the people sang and celebrated. But soon they began to complain.
We are thirsty!
Why have you brought us here to die?
They had no water, and the people cried out to the Lord. God instructed Moses to strike a rock, and water came out for the people to drink. When they had no food, God provided bread from heaven, called manna, which appeared each morning to sustain them. In the evening, God also sent quail, so the people had meat to eat. Day after day, God provided for them. The Israelites arrived at Mount Sinai, where they camped at the foot of the mountain. There, God called Moses up the mountain and made a covenant with the people of Israel, setting them apart as his chosen people. God spoke to Moses and gave him the 10 Commandments, his laws and instructions, written on stone tablets. These commandments taught the people how to honor God, how to live in obedience, and how to treat one another with righteousness and justice. So here are the commandments God gave to Moses. First, you shall have no other gods before me. Second, you shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. Third, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Fourth, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. Fifth, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. Sixth, you shall not murder. Seventh, you shall not commit adultery. Eighth, you shall not steal. Ninth, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. 10th, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. But while Moses was on the mountain, the people grew impatient. They made a golden calf and worshipped it. God was angry, but Moses prayed for the people. Moses came down from the mountain, saw the people worshipping the idol, and in his anger he threw down the tablets, breaking them. Later, God renewed his covenant with Israel. God led the people toward the promised land. But when spies were sent to explore it, most of them were afraid. The people refused to trust God. Because of their lack of faith, God said they would wander in the wilderness for 40 years until that generation had passed. After many years, the Israelites came close to the promised land again. Moses, now very old, gave final instructions to the people. But because of one act of disobedience earlier, Moses was not allowed to enter the land. God brought Moses to a mountain and showed him the promised land from afar. Then Moses died there.
Moses was a man chosen by God. He was not perfect, He doubted, he struggled, but he obeyed. Through Moses, God delivered his people from slavery, gave them his law, and led them toward freedom. The story of Moses reminds us that God sees suffering and cares, that he calls ordinary people for great purposes, that he is powerful and faithful, and that faith and obedience matter. Even in the hardest times, God is at work. And just as he led the Israelites out of Egypt, he can lead us through our own challenges today. And that is the story of Moses, a story of courage, faith, and the power of God to deliver his people.